So we talked about common needs and self-transcendence, and I feel like that's such a useful subject. I kind of wanted to talk more about that. Um, when we talk about self-transcendence, I think that we have a very romantic idea of what that would mean, where the ego disappears and people try and not have their ego. And I don't think, I think that actually happens because we don't understand what ego really is. And so I think that if we don't understand what an ego is, I think that we keep trying to eliminate it without realizing that actually ego is really necessary. It's a very important thing. And the only time an ego becomes an issue is when we're not appropriate to the moment, and the ego is using strategies, or the ego itself actually is a strategy. The strategy is not appropriate for the moment, meaning as in it's not meeting the needs of the moment. And so I kind of wanted to just talk about that. So if we talk about an ego, I would say, is how a person sees themselves. It's an identity. And as we talked about, your identity is structured around your needs. And so if you have certain needs, and your needs are there to balance your system in relation to all that's around the universe, if you will. And it sounds very grandiose, but it'd be probably better to say in relation to the laws of nature, because like for instance, gravity is present all the time. You have certain temperature ranges. I mean, all these laws of physics are in motion, and they're active. And then we have the environment that is all around us. So really, actually, when we say the universe, we could actually say that the laws of nature, which we could say, physics, is ever present. And so we are needing to balance ourselves in relation to these laws. And so in some ways it's grandiose because those same laws are ever present throughout the rest of the universe. And so therefore it affects us. And the rest of the universe is connected to us in such a way where we are able to exist because every aspect of the universe is actually acting together somehow. And so I think it's important to kind of just have this view. So our system is constantly adjusting to our environment so that we stay in harmony with it. Now, if we understand our needs from this perspective, then needs are what is common to everyone. Like breathing is common to everyone. To stay with, to have a certain comfort with temperature is common to everyone. The need for hunger, the need for love, like to feel connected, the need for productivity, these are common to everyone. And if we understand this is actually really interesting because we believe that they're conflicting needs, but needs are not conflicting, the strategies are. And so, and sometimes people say, well, how could this be? What I want and what the other person wants is different. And so aren't the needs conflicting? And what I'd like to say is that if we look at it from a very limited perspective, it might seem so. And for a short period of time, it could be. But if we look at it from a longer time and a longer perspective, then I like to say no. And so a good example for this is, for instance, when two people have opposing, quote unquote, opposing needs. One person wants to talk, needs support, is feeling emotionally really upset, needs to talk to someone, let's say for instance their spouse, and they say, hey, can I talk to you just for a moment here? I'm feeling emotionally really upset. And the other person is actually having to leave because they're being called to work, and they need to be there. And so now all of a sudden you have a conflicting need, and the person says, no, I can't, like, can't you see I have to leave to work? Is, will be a response. Now this response that's unkind comes from, oftentimes the inner feeling and the inner voice sounds like this: can't you tell that if I could stay, I would stay? I care about you. Why do you put me in this position where I have to say no? And so the anger is coming from actually really not even at the other person, but the helplessness and really the deep desire to be able to stay and be able to support the person, and feels bad about having to say no. And so now superficially you might actually not feel that. You might actually initially think this person's inconsiderate, or can't you see I'm busy, and it comes out like that. But there's a bad feeling about having to say no. There's this deep desire for us to support each other. So it's interesting, this person has a need to be supported, and this person has a need to support, and so there's a common need right in that moment. And instead of bonding through this common need, we actually start creating conflict because we feel bad that we can't bond through this common need. So if in that moment you were able to actually recognize what your needs were, you would speak very differently. You would say something to the effect of, oh, I really want to be there to support you. In this moment, I'm being called to work and there's an emergency. And so if I don't go, I'm going to be in trouble. And so could I call you later? Or let's say, for instance, a person gets to me and say, I have a need to support you. Like I really want to, but unfortunately right now I'm kind of stuck because I'm being called to work. And then if let's say for instance the other person is also present with the needs and can feel the need of this other person to support them, they'll actually feel the gratitude. They'll feel, oh, you know what? I can feel that you really want to support me. How about this? Do you think you could maybe call like after you're done with work if you're not too tired? Because, like I really want to talk to you because you make a real big difference to me. And so on and so forth. Now, you can also and if that's actually not the case, actually, where this particular person feels that this other person has this unique ability to have him feel heard, sometimes the person who has to leave, it can say, I want to support you, but right now in this moment I can't because I'm being called to work. Do you feel like you have someone else that you can talk to? And then the other person might be like, you know what, that's a really good idea. It could be that the person was just not in a place to really think. Or the person could say, you know what, like, I'm really glad that you're brainstorming some ideas because I can tell that you really want to support me. But I want to talk to you because like when I talk to you, I feel really different. And so the person would be like, oh, okay, you know what? Let me see what I can do after work, or let's see what we can do. And then you can work things out, and you can see that the need of wanting to be supported, ironically, is being actually met, even though you're not really supporting, because the person who wants to be supported can feel the need to support from the other person. And so, as you can see, the strategy of how we go about meeting these needs is actually the issue. And so like oftentimes when we feel bad, we try and deal with that by trying not be at fault, like as in like oh, I'm a bad person that I can't support. If I really cared about this person, I wouldn't go to work. I would just sacrifice my work and then be with this person. Like friends come first, or family comes first. And there would be a time for that. There actually is a time for that. But oftentimes that's actually not the case, because then you lose your job. And if you lose your job, you actually have bigger issues. And your friend doesn't feel good about that either. Your friend does not want you to lose your job, or your spouse does not want you to lose your job, because your spouse also cares about you. So your spouse has a need for you to go to your job as well. Can you see? If we really think about this, our needs are really in harmony. What is not in harmony is how we think about these things. And essentially by bringing awareness to this, we can start finding strategies that are very different, that transcends our ego.